What's good, y'all? My name is Gatleo, but you guys can call me KT. Welcome to the very first official episode of Cold Left Foot, your home of unfiltered, underrated, and unpopular football opinions. So, guys, as this is the very first ever episode on the platform, this is how things will go. Every episode will have two segments, of which I'll call them the first half and the second half. Without any further ado, let's get into the first half. How Sundowns' performance at the FIFA Club World Cup 2025 can impact South African football. Respect to Mamelodi Sundowns, guys. They really gave an outstanding performance at the Club World Cup. But honestly speaking, this is not only about them. This can have a great impact on South African football as a whole. Stick with me and I'll tell you why. So, as you guys know, Mamelodi Sundowns recently participated at the Club World Cup that was held in the United States from the 14th of June until the 13th of July. They were placed in Group F alongside Fluminense of Brazil, Ulsan HD of South Korea, as well as Borussia Dortmund of Germany. I would like to believe that most of us as a country, our expectations were quite low for Mamelodi Sundowns because playing against these teams is a very high level. Mamelodi Sundowns is a great team. They dominate the Betway Premiership as well as they're also dominant in the continental competitions. But the Club World Cup obviously is a different level. We've seen that even in the previous format, as this is the extended format. So obviously there would be more competition. Looking at their run in the tournament, their first match came up against Ulsan HD. They played very well, and I would like to believe that this was their best chance of getting a win out of the tournament. And they did exactly that. 1-0 win. They could have scored more goals. Unfortunately, two of the goals were disallowed due to handball as well as offside. But nonetheless, they got the job done. Leading up to the second game against Borussia Dortmund, that one was going to be a big one, obviously, because Borussia Dortmund is one of the big teams in Europe. So I saw this game going one way. Borussia Dortmund for the win. Honestly speaking, when the final whistle went off, Mamelodi Sundowns deserved something from the game. They played well, exceeded my expectations because they dominated the game. Should have at least gotten a draw from the game, even a win because they dominated most of the game. But unfortunately, due to their mistakes at the back, Mamelodi Sundowns got punished, you know. So that's what happens at this level. You make mistakes, you have to pay for them. But regardless, Mamelodi Sundowns did well. They did extremely well at this tournament. So leading up to the third game, that was obviously the game they had to win in order to have a chance at advancing into the last 16. They played well, but Fluminense have a great defense. Mamelodi Sundowns could have scored in the first half. Their best chance of the whole game came in the first half by a one-on-one chance. Unfortunately, they couldn't put it away, and the match ended a 0-0 draw. And that's how they were eliminated from the tournament. But let's look at the reasons how this performance can have a great impact on South African football. This can change the world's perceptions of South African football as well as the PSL. More international players can actually consider to play in the Betway Premiership, or rather, let me say the PSL in the future. Because yes, we do have a couple of international players, but when I mean international players, I mean mostly European players, because I know that most of them don't really see themselves playing in a league that is in Africa due to their perceptions and obviously the infrastructure, facilities not up to what they would think it is or it should be. So I think that would also change how a lot of players from abroad view this particular league of ours. This could boost the PSL's credibility. We know that some of the players that play here from African countries, they do get to play for some of their national teams, but mostly is the lower ranked nations like Namibia, Mozambique, all those countries that actually get to look at some of the players that play here. But the players that are from Nigeria, Ghana, they don't actually get to be called up for their national teams due to obviously the PSL's credibility. The perfect example that I can make is with Lucas Ribeiro. He's been performing well. Great player. He's probably been the best player at Mamelodi Sundowns in the past 2 seasons. And he definitely showed his quality at the Club World Cup. And I'd like to believe that he deserves a call up at the national team, the Brazilian national team to be specific. But unfortunately, because Brazil has a lot of European based players that play for big teams abroad, he's overlooked because he's playing in an African league, South African league. So that really doesn't work out for him. But I believe that to play at the Club World Cup and perform the way he did, it does give him a chance, honestly. It should give him a chance because if we look at the Brazilian national team currently, isn't really performing at the standard that we know. So for him to be called up to that team, I feel like he can actually add something to that team. You know, we've seen how good he can be on his day. This can also boost some of the players' ambitions as well as teams, because when they see Mamelodi Sundowns performing at such a prestigious tournament, I'd like to believe that it also gives them that sort of push to aim high and also want to compete at such tournaments. More local clubs can actually gain international supporters. We know that Mamelodi Sundowns, Kaizer Chiefs, and Pirates are the three big teams in South Africa, and they have the most supporters. So I think when they perform, or rather, after Sundowns' performance at this Club World Cup, I think a lot of football supporters worldwide would be interested in actually watching the PSL in the future and seeing the standard at which these teams are playing. We know that Mamelodi Sundowns is dominant in the league, but I do believe that if these other teams see how good Sundowns is, it actually also pushes them because we have seen how good Orlando Pirates has become, and I believe that they will only get better. So, guys, let's get into the second half of the episode. How PSG lost the Club World Cup final, or rather, how Chelsea overcame PSG in the Club World Cup final, whichever way you want to look at it. But we will stick with how PSG lost the Club World Cup final. So, guys, if we look at PSG this season, they have been very dominant. They've been playing great football. And ironically, it's in the same season Mbappe left for Real Madrid. But that did not deter them at all. They actually became a better team collectively. They won 4 trophies including their first ever UEFA Champions League title. Their performance at this Club World Cup was relentless. They were very, very, very strong, even for teams like Atletico Madrid, who are known to have solid defenses, but they put 4 goals past them, which is not really what we are used to when we watch Atletico Madrid matches. They also beat Real Madrid by the same score line, which is just ridiculous if you ask me. And I would like to think that leading up to the final, they were the favorites to take the whole thing. So, guys, if we look at how they actually lost this final, the downside of being favorites, sometimes when you come into a game and you are already the favorites, I think that sometimes it's unintentional, but the players go in there believing that they are the better team and they will come out victorious in the match. It's not something obviously that they tell themselves, but complacency does creep in sometimes when we least expect it. And also, I think their gameplay was not too tight because they've been winning football matches according to the way they play. So it's not really for them to study too much of a team because they already know that they are strong enough in the way they play to break down any style of play. But we all know that there's no such thing as a perfect team. Every team has weaknesses, and that is what Chelsea exploited. PSG started the game on the back foot. If you look at how the game started, Chelsea was already attacking from the word go. They did not give PSG to settle at all in the match. And what happened was sometimes in football matches, teams tend to start very, very good. And then as the match progresses, the momentum sort of drops. And then sometimes the other team, they come back into the game and sometimes end up winning. But that did not happen with this game. Chelsea made sure that they keep up or they kept up their momentum until they got a goal, of which I believe that just kept them going for more. And that also sort of put PSG in a chokehold in a way because now they were stunned. They did not know what to do. They were panicking. Chelsea countered their pressing with diagonal balls. If we look at PSG, they are very good at pressing from the front, especially when they have playing. He's the one who triggers the press, goes in and presses the goalkeeper. So that is how some teams struggle to play out from the back. But if you look at Chelsea, that was not their aim. They knew that that would happen. So every time PSG tried to press them, they would hit diagonal balls. That's where Cole Palmer, Joao Pedro, and Pedro Neto's pace and intelligence running off the ball came in. They already knew how to make the runs in order to exploit the defense. Chelsea overloaded the middle of the park. If you look at how they defended, we know that PSG is a team that I don't want to say they play tiki-taka, but obviously they play short passing, pacey, short passing, and they are dominant in the middle of the park because their midfield three sort of interchanges. So you don't know exactly who's the number 8, who's the number 6, and who's the number 10. They change constantly. So it makes it difficult for teams to track them down. But what Chelsea did was they overloaded the midfield. They didn't press them high, but they closed the passing lanes, which made it very difficult for PSG to build up their play in order to get the ball to the forwards. And even when the ball got to the forwards, they never committed. You know, sometimes when you see teams try to defend, they go in for slide tackles and all that type of stuff, which is good at certain times, but at most times you need to make sure that you stay on your feet and track your player and make sure that he doesn't play across into the box and that type of stuff. Chelsea had a very structural defensive line. Just like the middle of the park, their structure at the back was very solid. They did not let any crosses or any through passes in, which made it very difficult for PSG to break them down. So, guys, we've come to the end of today's episode. If you've watched until this long, thank you so much. If you like this type of content, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next episode of Cold Left Foot. I'm out. Peace.